One rental at a time is a different channel because we can bring on the top 1% from across the industry. We have a brand new guest coming to the channel who's been in the business 27 years, top 1% producer, and has a YouTube channel that we all need to be checking out. Let's welcome Kelly to the show. How you doing, Kelly?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So this will be episode 1 of 3. In episode 1, just introduce yourself to the audience. Who is Kelly? Where you at? What you do in this crazy world of real estate?
Well, my name is Kelly Zitlow. I work for Cornerstone Home Lending. I have been a loan officer for 27 years. And currently, I also, as part of my responsibilities at Cornerstone, help lead our sales force and just really help bring an education to our loan officers. So I wear a few hats.
So I would say it's fair to say that the real estate investing or lending landscape has changed a few times since 1996. I did that math in my head. So since 1996, I thought, I've been doing this a long time, and I started in 2001, and I've seen the lending landscape change. So go back to 1996. What was lending? What were rates like? I actually have no idea.
Yeah. So when I started in the business in 96, I started doing refinances. That was my first entry. And I was refinancing people out of 9 and 10% interest rates to 7 and 8% interest rates. So perspective is just so different for those of us that have been around a little bit longer. And on that note, I'm going to stop saying that I've been in the business 27 years. I'm just going to go with like over 20 for now.
Yeah, you go. Yeah, 20 is enough.
Like over 20, we don't need to do any math here.
No math. Yeah, 20 years is good enough. Absolutely. But the other thing because again, I keep reminding folks, Kelly, there's a housing market, but there's also a lending market, and they don't always line up. Like, one of the things that I remember, because again, starting my journey in 2001, I would call 2001, my loan a real loan. It was really underwritten. They looked at my financials. They verified my job. It was a real loan. This is just reality. In 2005, I think I bought our 8th house, and I signed a blank form.
Yeah.
That was what was happening. Yeah. We got your file. We'll add what's needed. Literally. Yeah. That's where we went. And obviously we paid the price for that. Then, well, actually, I'll stop there, right? Because lending got, I'll call it loose, stupid, whatever adjective you want to put on that.
Yes.
Up through 2006. You remember it that way?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I'd say probably what we'll call that Alt-A, subprime, whatever you want to call it. And they were different, but still the requirements and the risk assessment wasn't there. So that kind of started in about 2003 and then just picked up momentum. And what was so interesting, Michael, is that if you looked at the interest rate and the cost for one of those Alt-A loans, sounds like you did a no ratio, meaning you didn't even put income on the loan application, versus a traditional conforming conventional loan that was fully underrated with income documentation, the interest rates and the costs were the same.
Yeah, exactly. Why would you do all that other work?
Why would you?
I wouldn't, and I didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that was wild. And really, it's really interesting because I uncovered something last week, and we'll talk about it here, that feels like it could lead us that direction again. So what I remember starting in 03, 04 and got wild in 05 and 06 was people that really had no real reason to be approved were being approved. And I say that because I repeatedly declined tenants because of poor credit, lack of income, to rent from me, but then they bought a home. So I'm saying that with some evidence that was happening. I just heard that we're proposing $100 billion, $25K a pop, which, if you do the math, is 4 million buyers. Yeah. We're talking about potentially getting up to 4 million people into homes with nothing down, no skin in the game. That feels a little bit too close to the nuttiness of last time to me. Maybe I have PTSD. I don't know.
Well, I think valid concerns. I think that the other part of that, though, is just our market can't handle.
Where are the homes coming from?
We only have a million houses nationwide that are for sale today. I mean, where are these people going to get houses? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make, again, I think you've said it, I'll say it again. We don't have a demand problem. We have a supply problem.
Absolutely.
And again, are you licensed in California by chance?
I am. Yeah.
So in California, you'll remember we had the California Dream. Remember that just like 2 months ago? We have evidence. If you tell people free money, they're going to bid, they're going to overbid. How many escalations clause happened that 2-week period? And the money was gone in 8 business days.
Yeah.
$100 billion, Kelly, that frightens me.
I know.
Yeah. All right. Well, I digress. Let's get back to lending because again, Alt A got really, really wild and then it didn't. And then it got wildly restrictive.
Yeah, it did. So the faucet turned off.
Yeah,
that's what I like to say. If you just think about it, it's like the water's on and it's just going. And then one day it just turns off. And that's essentially what happened. I think that we are starting to see some of that in the regional banks types of environments. Certainly when it comes to commercial real estate, a little bit different this time around than residential. But nevertheless, when credit tightens, when that money supply starts to turn off, it does have an impact. And it's not just an impact, one-to-one, it's a global impact. And so, today we have seen, if we go back to that point in time, I mean, I'm in Arizona. In Arizona, we fought for number 1 to number 2 in the entire country with regard to foreclosure, short sales, bankruptcy. So we were in the news and we led it. Mm-hmm. So back then, I mean, literally mortgage insurance companies left Arizona. They're like, yeah, we're out. FHA had to come into Arizona. Yep.
Yeah. And again, I remember being a buyer. So 2010, yeah, I never lost a property. We're sitting with 80 units. Okay. All apartments, multifamily at this point. Like I bought a house for 107. I sold it for 264. It goes to 300 and then goes all the way to 75. Yeah. Right. So this is my market was down, whatever that is, 75% or whatever. Yeah. But where I'm going with this is I tried to buy a property, just a house out of the MLS. Yeah. I went to a bank who had all our money, decade-long relationship, and they basically told me no. Politely, you're the problem. We're in this mess. I'm like, I'm the problem. Did you not see this? What do you mean I'm the problem? So I go across the street to another big bank and they're not so nice, Kelly. They basically tell me to F off. They don't lend to investors. Yeah. So there was a 7-year period, Kelly, where I had to do private money or hard money because I could not. And this is when prices are, $30,000. There was just no lending. Lenders, I'm convinced, my opinion, because the lenders wouldn't invest to lenders wouldn't lend to experienced investors. The market went lower than it should. Yeah.
I would agree on some level. And, it's almost counterintuitive. At that point in time, we had all of this supply, but the lending was so tight that it was hard to get people, financing to buy all of that inventory. So
yeah, and again, they just refused. Yeah, they just said no. So guess what? If they had the assets, they could have just financed the ones they had. Right? I get it. I don't want to take somebody else's bad property, but darn it, I've got 17,000 of these. Why don't I try to finance them and maybe half of them are okay? Yeah. It's just bad execution by banks. And then we fast forward to today. We had the pandemic, right? This thing that went on. And guess what happened? Banks created online forms to get a forbearance. That was a little different. That didn't happen last time.
Yeah, no, that did not happen last time. And deferment on student loans, deferment on mortgage payments. I mean, it was a whole different game this time around for sure. Didn't last as long. But, even I think one point that's really important, anytime something catastrophic or there's a global financial something that happens, it impacts liquidity. And liquidity is how we get loans, whether it's a home loan, whether it's a car loan, whether it's a business loan. That's the thing to kind of keep in mind. So even when we went back to the pandemic, March 2020, it was another one of those times where, guess what? The faucet turned off for just a moment in time. It wasn't long.
But we didn't know. I was in it. Yeah.
There was a good 60 days.
Not again.
we're like, oh, and people don't understand it. We are much more of a global financial, weaving, what's happening in Europe, what's happening in the States, what's happening with a big bank failure, what's happening, all that stuff does impact mortgage money.
Yeah, absolutely. But one of the things that we now have evidence of is forbearance works, right? I believe Black Knight reported that forbearance peaked at like 4.2 million properties in forbearance.
Yeah.
Now that it's run for 3 years or whatever it's been, they have the numbers kind of at the end of that. Less than 1% actually ended up being foreclosed on. We would have had a lot more foreclosures if they didn't do forbearance. So where this is going, in my opinion, is the next time we have a thing, forbearance will be at least the first step. They're not going to foreclose like last time because that was painful.
And honestly, Michael, I think that was good. I think we needed that. The whole world was just distraught and we didn't know how to deal with it all. And people needed time for sure. So I think that was a good move for a period of time. It probably went on a little bit longer than it should have, but it was a good move. And that's exactly what we learned from this time around. Let's give a breathing room. The whole time, though, that people are in forbearance, the equity on their properties is just, tripling, quadrupling. I mean, it's crazy. So if somebody needed to sell after forbearance was over, there's a good chance they had money in that property to be able to sell it, put the money in their pocket, and not have to foreclose or short sell.
Yeah, and then the other thing, I'm starting to see some of these workouts that they're doing, right? They're making 40 years, silent seconds, lowering rates. I think banks are bending over backwards to not foreclose.
Absolutely.
So those hoping for a foreclosure wave, and yes, I see the numbers from Adam and all these others that foreclosure, are up. It's not 06, it's not 07, it's not 08 again, and it's just not coming.
No. Again, why? Because there's more demand than there's supply. So, and people have equity,
So the last thing we'll talk about in episode number 1 is, I think if you had a scale of 1 to 10, 1 was 2005, meaning I signed a blank loan app, and 10 was like 2010, where I can't get a loan with great credit, 800 credit, down payment, all of that. So there's your range.
Okay.
Where do you think we are today on the difficulty of, or how tight is lending? And we'll do residential because I agree commercial's different.
Yeah, I'd have to say today, I mean, we're probably in the middle of those two. There's still plenty of residential money and loans available. There just are. The problem is the affordability factor. So if you can qualify at a 7% interest rate, great. Now is a great time to buy, but that's the problem. It's the 7% interest rate. It's not that there's lending restrictions or things like that. Are we starting to see the automated underwriting systems tighten a little bit? And by that, I mean Fannie Mae's desktop underwriter and Freddie Mac's loan prospector. Yeah, a little bit we are, but it's nothing compared to 2010.
Yeah. What I'm telling people is I did an event in January. I told them I thought lending was a 4.
Yeah.
I think today we're a 6.
Yeah.
I think it could get to an 8 or a 9. But you're right. Because when I talked to my audience, I talked to owner occ and investors.
Yeah.
I think owner occupants, I think it never gets more than a 5. Frankly, Fannie and Freddie being under conservatorship is a blessing.
Yeah.
They're just going to keep that pipeline open for owner occs. I think investors, I think LTVs will go down. I think rates will go up. I think DSCR loans are going to get tighter and tighter. I think there's a lot of things Wall Street is looking at that's like, ooh, maybe these were a little riskier than we thought.
Agreed. So that whole non-QM world, right? So that's the world that will start to tighten. So the DSCRs, absolutely, bank statement, apps, all of that will tighten, which definitely does impact a certain part of your buying pool.
Yeah. So again, I think if you're an owner occupant buying, again, I just bought a home. I just closed on it last week. I would say now my file is way harder than the average person. But we still got it done in about 30 days, which is much faster than I thought.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think owner occupants, if you can get qualified with whatever your rate is going to be, yeah, I think lending will be open. I think investors get ready for lower LTVs. And if you're in the non-QM space, get a backup or 2. because there will be programs that turn off overnight. What do you think of all that, Kelly?
100% agree.
So Kelly, if somebody wanted to reach out to you and see what's what in mortgage, or wanted to follow your YouTube channel, where are we sending them?
Yeah, so you can call or text 480-725-0150. And as far as my YouTube channels, feel free to check out Mortgage How Do I. It is really where I'm just trying to educate people on how to qualify for a home loan to build wealth through real estate.
I love that. One more time, what's the phone number? You did it pretty quick.
480-725-0150.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly.